So I'm going to combine these two parts of the field of action and building capacity. So we have a little bit more time for your questions and your reflections. I think that would be okay, right? So the field of action is really your individual context in which you are learning all these things. And just think for a moment, what is the context where you have the greatest challenges? How many of you would say it's personal, inside your own head? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh. Okay. Okay, and then if you look at everything as ripples in water, going out from there, would your greatest challenge be with the people you live with? It's not as difficult as being inside your own head. Is that right? Yes, no? Yes. So your own head is a problem. What about the wider world, the community, the work world? Is that your greatest challenge? Looks like the majority, aside from those who are abstaining, is is inside your own head. Yeah? So let us examine the world of inside your own head, especially. Is that good? So there's inside your own head and there's inside your own heart, head and heart, right? So your head has to do with your thinking and your heart has to do with your feelings. So that is the inner world, the inner kingdom. Well, this study and practice of Raj Yoga, and yoga being skill in action, if you look at it from the angle of inside your own head, where you have the greatest challenges, says to me that you haven't had much information or much encouragement to develop your inner world. Is that reasonable to say? And I think partly it's because we live in a culture that is very externalized. And if you go back to when you were a small child, how much time did you have with your imagination in like a safe environment where you could play as you want in nature, enjoying your head and your heart your way? A lot, a lot, a lot. Did you feel that you didn't have enough time with those who care, your carers? Yes, no? Did you like having all this time just with yourself, or did you sometimes feel lonely? You liked having all this time to yourself? Yes. But because that's the time when you start building your inner world. So when you have all this time to build your inner world as a child, did you have much time with the divine as a child in your imagination, building your inner world? Yes. No. No. Okay. Most of you are abstaining. Okay, now you're going to have to give me a little bit more understanding as to what's the problem in your head. Anybody like to put it into words? Yes. Can we have a microphone over here?
I might sound rough, but I feel a very heavy guilt because seems like I wasn't a good mother. Now 2 of my kids won't talk to me, and it's like very, very heavy guilt.
Okay, fair enough. Let me see if there's anyone else who feels, for one reason or another, guilt. 1, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, let me speak for a little moment about guilt. You remember I talked a little bit earlier about innocent until proven guilty, right? So this refers to actual crimes. So when you are guilty or when you feel guilty, it's not the same thing. So feeling guilty is a strange thing. If someone would come from outer space and visit the humans and see that there were some who were guilty, presumed innocent, and there were some who were innocent and presumed guilty, there are some who are nothing at all but feel guilty. They wouldn't be able to figure it out. So what is the foundation of feeling guilty? So you said, I wasn't a good mother. Is there anyone who has had perfect parenting? Anybody? No? Okay. So it seems to be a common thing that people didn't have perfect parenting. So if your kids didn't have perfect parenting, that's probably par for the course. So you're probably not that guilty. But if you feel guilty, it's because of the behavior of other people towards you and telling you things about what you should or shouldn't have done or something like that. And this will make you feel guilty, right? Yeah. So what does a child actually need? 2 things. One is love. Do you love your kids?
I do.
You do, of course you do. So you got 50% right. Not bad. Then the other one is structure. Was it possible for you to provide coherent, consistent structure, or were there things in the way?
It was very hard, but I was able to provide what I could.
In other words, the judgment in your case is not guilty. So that being the case, your sentence is be free.
Okay, dismiss my case.
So now the thing about feeling guilty, it's a very strange phenomenon, this thing about feeling guilty. And feeling guilty is a little, you can say a little haptic. You know what haptic is? Something your cell phone does when it vibrates, right? So it's like it lets you know there's a message. And so your conscience lets you know if you did something wrong. Like you said, hey, shouldn't do that. You say, okay, I won't. Right? And so the amount of time required to feel guilty is probably 1 second. Yes? 2 seconds is too long. So feeling guilty is a very strange thing to do. And I would suggest that you should limit yourself to 1 second, right? The rest of the time, if you are guilty, then there'll be something you have to do to atone for it. Or if you're not guilty, then there's nothing you have to do. But feeling guilty, that's not in the system. No, you don't need to feel guilty. So, where does feeling guilty come from? I would say something like public opinion. Yes? Public opinion. Now, one thing you need to know about public opinion, which not very many people know about it, and that is that there is nothing more unreliable than public opinion. Nothing. So if you pay attention to unreliable messages, this is not a good idea, right? Because they're unreliable. So think about how you feel about stuff that people put on you, right? Not good, right? But that's optional. So if someone wants to put something on you to make you feel bad, you have to check and see if you actually did something that was damaging. So for example, if you actually did not love your kids, which means you actually neglected them, didn't talk to them, didn't give them any food, didn't give them any time, etc., etc. But you didn't do that, right?
Oh,
No, you see?
at least not intentional. If when that happened, it was not intentional.
Of course, but life is life, right? And you have kids, and then you have trouble, problems, in-laws, husband, work, this, that. Life is hard, is it not? Yes. And so maybe your kids want you to do what they want, when they want, if they want, all the time, 24/7. You see, but that is not realistic, right? So they may say, yeah, you know, you have to be for me all the time, 24/7, etc., etc., etc. And if you're not, we will make you feel guilty, right? So don't buy into that one. You don't have to.
Thank you.
Right. So since you're not guilty, you say to your kids, you know what, kids? I love you. Right? One time. They don't need to hear it 24/7. And you say to your kids, don't worry, everything will be okay. Right? And end of story. Why do kids feel bad? Why do kids feel bad? Because they do. One of the reasons is because the atmosphere in school is pretty bad, which has nothing to do with mum or dad. The atmosphere in school is pretty bad. And who is the safest person to express your feelings to? Mom. So all of this bad stuff, which comes from all kinds of other places, that's nothing to do with your responsibility, is disturbing the kids. And they have to, because they're not old enough to figure out all this stuff. They have to say, it's mom's fault. Because if we say that, mom will not do anything bad to us. It's safe, you see. So it doesn't mean that what they say to you is what they mean. It's that mom is safe for kids to take out their frustrations, difficulties, trauma, whatever it is. And all they need is a big hug and for you to understand that they are troubled by what we call the real world, which is really very unkind to kids. Is noisy, is brutal, right? Violent. And the only safe thing is mom. And so you have to interpret it better. Nothing to do with you're a bad mom, but the world is bad. And mom is safe. Anybody else feeling guilty about something? You were a minute ago. But you understand the difference between feeling guilty and being guilty. And so stick to the facts. If you have done something or been something that other people don't like, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've done something to feel guilty about, or even that is bad or wrong. But the world is hard for people, especially kids. So what else is troubling your head? Please. You need a microphone. Hold a sec. Hold 1 sec. Sorry.
Regardless of whether you really are guilty or not, if you feel guilty even for 1 second, can you talk about the process of forgiveness and elaborate on how that can help and what that exactly is in an internal sense?
Well, I don't believe in forgiveness. I know it's totally unfashionable, but what to do? You have to analyze these things, right? Forgiveness means you have a debt and the person you have a debt to says you don't have to pay. That's forgiveness. That's the meaning of forgiveness. So if you are guilty of something negative, then you perform a negative karma, right? And then automatically and necessarily circumstances will give you an equal and opposite return of that karma sooner or later. And it's proportional, you see. Now, forgiveness is a strange concept when applied to people's feelings. You know, you may do something and say, oh, forgive me, forgive me. And they say, oh, I forgive you, I forgive you. But they can't actually, because they are not in charge of the law of karma. You see. So if a person does an action which is classified in a proper way as a debt to someone, sooner or later you will pay that debt in kind. However, there are many accusations that go on in this world. Someone will accuse you of not being something that they want you to be, and they will make you feel bad about that, right? Have you experienced that? You know, but you have to know that this is not real. People take their frustrations or difficulties out on other people. And you need to understand what's going on when it's going on, you see. And we have to understand that, you remember I told you about earlier on about the fact that people need power. And they try to get it from other people. Everyone is depleted. So if one car, which has no gasoline in it, goes and takes over another car, which has one drop in it, and takes that, and then gets really fed up with that car because it only has one drop and it wants a few gallons, and starts beating up on that car. That why do you have only a few gallons? You know, this is what's going on. People are trying to get their power from another person who is not capable and also does not have the responsibility or duty to provide them with their lack of power. But people don't understand this, you see, and so they blame, accuse, you see. This is normal because of not knowing, you see. Many people just don't know about these things. It is not common knowledge. So we hear about forgiveness, you have to forgive. You do not have the capability to forgive, nor the duty, nor do you have any clue what forgiveness is. But somebody wants some energy from you that they don't have a right to and that you cannot provide. And that's just the way the cookie's crumbling. You see. But because people don't know, buy into this imaginary story. It's not a good story. So what is needed is at least to understand that I cannot take responsibility for somebody else's depleted state. You cannot, even if it's your kids, your husband, your parents, your friends, your cousins, your grandparents, your neighbors. You can't, and you don't have to, but they won't. So therefore, we need to make a clear distinction between what we are bound to do for each other and what we are not bound to do. So if you remember a little earlier, I talked about us all being siblings, and that the duty between siblings is a little bit of love, not the whole 9 yards, a bit of love, due love and regard. But no human being is responsible for filling another human being with their spiritual emptiness. You are not God unless you hadn't noticed. Are you God? Oh, no, I don't think so. You see, and God could never feel guilty anyway, right? About what? I mean, how many complaints there are? He says, you know, guys, I'm here. Take power. Understand something. I understand your situation, but I'm not buying into your problems, your complaints, and think that I'm responsible for your problems. No. Now, why are human beings in general very depleted? This is an important thing to know. I did mention it before, but I'll go through it in another way. You see, every soul has a certain amount of power, and it gets used by just being alive. And so you become spiritually depleted. The state of humanity in general is everyone is spiritually depleted. Second of all, you have taken in a lot of negative energy that other people have projected onto you. And this drains away your spiritual power. Third of all, you do not know how to fill yourself with spiritual power. Hardly anyone knows, you see. So being in a state of spiritual depletion is completely normal. And you also have to understand that other people try to get the last drops of your energy because they're really spiritually depleted. So the relationship between people is somewhat cannibalistic, taking energy from each other and complaining when there isn't any to take, right? And so because of this reason, we need to, you know, position ourselves differently in regard to this system. There is this fashion of assuming that we have a right to take energy from another sibling. We don't, right? But people don't know this and they think, yeah, if I'm hungry, I'll eat whatever comes along, you know. That's not nice, right? That's why I call it cannibalistic. And what makes a person cannibalistic? There's one movie about an airplane crash. I don't know if you saw that. There was an airplane crash of a group of people, many of them were footballers or something like this. Yes? And they crash in the Andes, yeah. And so there were, you know, maybe a half or so of them survived. And then, you know, it's snowy over there, so at least you could eat snow. But then you got hungry, right? And so eventually, because of being in survival, they decided that we have to eat each other. And so as different ones died from one thing or another, one of them who was a bit willing and a bit capable to create meat from humans. And so they had that. Eventually, I think it's about 14 of them made it. And they were 2 or 3 months in that situation. And they got rescued, you know. And so many people thought, you know, this is a true story. Is this right? Is this wrong? What? But what happens is when you're in survival, you do what you have to do. and you have to override a lot of the boundaries that you set for yourself, because otherwise you will die. And then you might decide, okay, well, it's better to die than do that. And somebody said, no, it's better to do that and die later. Because anyway, anyone who's alive will die. And anyone who's dead will reincarnate. So once you understand this little point, it changes things. It's a very deep point. Anyone who's dead will take birth. Anyone who's alive will die. So you're either alive or not. If you're not, you will be. If you are, you won't be. People don't think like this. Well, this is ancient information. So at this present time, most people spiritually are in survival, absolutely depleted. And it's very difficult to be depleted inside your head, because your power to keep your mind in a easy state. You remember in the very beginning when I was reading you those verses? One of the definitions of yoga is that you are stable in your mind, evenness of mind, you see. So when you're spiritually depleted, that's very difficult, because your mind is going all over the place. And you're taking on and taking in many, many things. And you may have done something no good and feel guilty about it. Or someone may have done no good to you and you feel bad about that. There's a lot of things happen. And they happen because spiritual depletion. So what's important is to draw spiritual power into the self, because it resolves the matter of spiritual depletion. So we have to learn how to drink that power. And you drink it into your mind. And you take it in by focusing your mind on that source. And for that, you need to have a little bit information how to do that. So you had some few pieces of information, some few practices, and so you have a little bit of an idea what to do, how to do, yes? A little bit more than when you just came in. So you have a possibility, and also you have a different, maybe different way of looking at things. And when you really understand that you're in survival, first thing you have to do is forgive yourself. So forgive yourself for what? You forgive yourself for not understanding things that you can't understand because you don't have any information. So it's not your fault. You see. So in that sense, forgive means don't beat yourself up over something. Give yourself a break. Be compassionate towards yourself. So they use the word forgive for that, which is actually not really what forgiveness is about, but we use the word in that way. I like let go or let it be. You remember this Beatles song, Let It Be, from long, long ago. It's quite a good song because it really addresses many things that are still coming up. Let it be. It is what it is. Nothing you can do. And once you realize there's something that's bothering you that there's nothing you can do about, which is quite a lot of things, the best thing of all is to say, you know, it is what it is, let it be. yes, we are in many ways in survival. Yes, life is hard and might get harder. And we are not strong enough to manage it. But when we start doing a few things for ourselves in this way and reducing the amount to which we drain away our spiritual energy by engaging in things like feeling guilty, because it's a choice. You feel guilty because somebody said something or did something which intended to make you feel guilty. So you go along with it and feel guilty. Now, instead, you could say, okay, you're welcome to your opinion and don't feel guilty. And then they will say, oh, but you're selfish. And you look inside yourself and see, are you selfish? Actually, no. It's just an accusation. People make accusations because they're at the end of their rope. But it doesn't mean that it's anything to do with you. You need to just get the point that this is the way it is. This is how people are. And you might have heard the expression about, oh, can you please be strong for me, right? Or I need you to be my rock or my pillar or whatever, you know. It would be better if they would turn their attention to someone or something that is actually able to fulfill that requirement that they have. But a human being is visible, tangible, and that is invisible, intangible. And because of that, they go for you, not that, you see. And you need to know this, you see, because then you won't take it in. You won't allow yourself to be drained away. You'll understand, no, you know what? Hey, I'm not God. What you need is something that's about as powerful as that. Right? Is that logical, reasonable, coherent? Don't expect people to be logical, reasonable, or coherent because they are more or less desperate with hunger because of being so spiritually depleted and because of not knowing why they feel what they feel or what's going on. So does that make sense to you? So this is your field of action. Your field of action is, it's like a desert, right? There's no water of spiritual qualities in the atmosphere. It's not a loving, peaceful, blissful, powerful world we live in, right? It's a world which is very demanding and very unforgiving. People use the word unforgiving. It's harsh. And so, therefore, we have to also develop certain resilience. The more we know about this sort of thing and some of the spiritual laws and all this kind of thing, the more we know about it, the more we can experiment with it. Because each one of us is responsible to use information and methods to strengthen ourselves, right? And each one of us will understand these things in our own way, yeah? Everybody's different. Everybody's circumstances are different. Each one take the same information and will apply it differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's normal. try it out, experiment with it, look deep into yourself and, think about what you know is right, what you feel is right, which has nothing to do with public opinion. I think this problem of public opinion is a big one, because you think that whatever anybody says to you is automatically true. It's highly unlikely to be true. Oh, you are this, that, and the other, and you did this, that, and the other. You're welcome to your opinion. Use this expression. You're welcome to your opinion. Have a nice day. End of conversation. You see. In this way, you protect yourself from someone who wants to use you as a source of energy, but it's not your responsibility to fulfill their desire. Just because they desire to do it doesn't mean it's correct. Definitely it means they're empty, no doubt, but they're not coming to the right shop. Right? Which is the right shop? Somewhere which has the goods. Go there. What's the price? The price of these goods. Does it have a price? Definitely it has a price. So what's the price? The price is you have to pay attention. And the price is you have to figure out how to connect. We give you information, but still you have to figure out, try out, make the connection, try to fill yourself up. Also, the price is feeling guilty is not going to help. So you have to give up that. Give up feeling guilty. And give up thinking that you're not okay. Who says you're not okay? You're very okay. Right? How many people told you you're not okay? Quite a few, right? Yeah. So you're welcome to your opinion. Have a nice day. You know what? I'm okay. You must do that, because otherwise you're giving them permission to drain out your energy for free. Why would you do that? You could have a microphone.
I feel like when someone sometimes tells me this is not okay about you or something like that, I think I sometimes give it attention because I'm like, maybe that's an opportunity for me to learn from it. And
You would give me an example, a real one.
a real one, I'm going to have to think of it. I was thinking, so like, okay, so this is not like a very intense example, but for example, my when I was growing up, I would come home from work, and at the time I was living with my parents in India, and I would come home from work, and then maybe my clothes were probably not in the right place after I changed and everything. So every morning my dad would be like, you need to become more organized. This is not okay about you, which was a learning thing for me. But I don't think that's true for when every time someone says that, but it's
Okay.
hard to.
So this is a very useful example. That means that somebody was consistently putting you down. That's not okay. Even if it's your dad. To tell you that consistently means to intend to diminish you in your own eyes. This is not okay. you see. But because this is an elder person, this is an authority figure who tells you, I am probably more important than God. So you better listen to what I say and take it in. And even if it really messes you up, it's very good. No, sorry, it's not. This is because of the unlevel playing field, which is very unlevel in India, like really unlevel.
Yeah, that's true.
So what you should do, I'll give you a few tips, right? Go on Google
Mhm.
and read something called the Manu Smriti. And if you read that, you will understand how the playing field got more unlevel than in most other places. Because this person, so-called person, who is not actually a person, but a group of men who decided to get together and teach the other men all the good ways of making all the girls and wives feel really limited and negative in their own eyes. So then you got their stuff and you say, oh, this is what's going on. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Yeah. This is called the patriarchal system. And it sounded very good to them. But when you actually put it in practical reality, it actually caused huge damage in the culture of India. And so India has to be repaired, right? And who better to repair it than someone who knows stuff? You know, who is supposed to be the one who knows everything? Any idea? Exactly, you see. So this is a good source of information. Yeah. Now you will find something similar in the Christian Bible, which causes exactly the same damage in exactly the same way. And you will also find it in the Quran. You'll also find it in the Dhampad, which is a Buddhist scripture. Yes. So these religions, when they were written down in scriptures, they said, oh, yeah. Free labor, wives. Right? Somebody who we can make ourselves feel better about by putting them down. Daughters. Because actually, oddly enough, the experience of a soul in a female body creates quite a lot of resilience because there's a lot of bashing that goes on from birth until death. And the other interesting thing about India is that everybody believes in reincarnation, right? And everyone who is in the body of a woman next time comes in a man's body and vice versa. And so once you know that, watch out. It's very, very deep. It's very deep, you see. But sometimes people think, you know, like there's female souls and male souls. So female souls get reincarnated as females and male souls get reincarnated as males, right? And people think that. This is incorrect. Every soul switches gender every birth. So you better watch out. And if you calculate and think about it quite deeply, you would see that the people who wrote this thing called Manusmriti didn't know about this. They didn't know. So we forgive them. But we don't take it seriously what they wrote. I see. Because then whatever somebody does, that's up to them. You know, they can put you down as much as they want, but you don't have to take it seriously. Okay, you don't like how I put my clothes. Thank you for your information. Have a nice day. It doesn't mean you allow that person to go on and on and on and use that as a beating item to abuse you verbally and put you down, because you're protecting them from accumulating some pretty negative karma by doing that. And you're protecting yourself from accumulating somebody else's unnecessary negative karma directed at you, which is called allowing something negative to contaminate you. So for this, you need to understand that all these are siblings who do not understand much. And so, fair enough, they do what they do because they are told a certain way, which is not correct. And they forgot their spirit, you see, because it's intangible. And so once you know that and you don't take in negativity from anyone, you close that door, then a lot of your drainage of spiritual energy stops draining, because you know that it's just a game. There's nothing, you know, beneficial to you about taking in someone's negativity. But, you know, you have to understand that anything like this is connected with colonialism. Colonialism. India was under foreign rule for about 1,000 years. And 1,000 years ago was when this material was written down. Yeah, I see. We had 700 years in India of Islamic dominance, 700 years. Had about 300 years of European dominance, you see. And when you have colonialism, those who come and colonize you, they diminish you and take what they want. But it's very important in the system of colonialism. I don't know if you understand the philosophy of colonialism, but it's quite useful to know. It's all about diminishing you and taking your wealth and making you lose your value of yourself. And so what do you think happened to the men? They were not treated well, right? And who is safe? Just like when you were talking about your kids, who is safe? Your wife, your daughter. They won't do anything against you. So you will take it out on your wife, your daughter. But if you don't know the dynamics of this, which goes from generation to generation to generation, you will let it damage you. But once you start understanding this, you start applying mechanisms to stop the damage, stop taking it in, understand it's propaganda, and that it's inevitable that this happens this way. Inevitable. So it's okay. But the thing that you have right over and power over and choice about is whether you take it in or not, you see. And if you don't take it in, then you stop this cycle of continuous damage, one to another, generation after generation after generation. You see what I mean? And see, India has only been a country, a single country, under its own government since 1947. That's not very long. The culture is ancient, but it's passed through one hell after another, after another, after another. Leaves damage, you see. But the damage is so subtle because it's passed from generation to generation that you can't put your finger on it, see. And so God, who knows all things, actually knows about this also, unsurprisingly, and says, hey, guys, you are the ancient people, right? Is that right? Now, you used to be the most highly civilized people on the face of the earth, yes? And you had more wealth than anybody could ever even imagine or dream of, you see. And all of that was very interesting for somebody else who thinks, I think I would take this, make myself rich. Yes, this is normal. And eventually now there's nothing left of anything, right? The world is lots and lots of people and resources are less. But change is going on, right? Can you feel? Change is going on. And change means what used to be coming back. Ancient, recent past, and its effect going away. And the instrument to make it go away has very much to do with not taking in these consequences. And you have possibility to do that. See?
How do you delineate between something that's harmful feedback versus something that's good feedback, something you could learn from? It's just become so hard because, like, for example, my dad's intent might be that I become more organized and keep my clothes in a proper way.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to say it every day.
Mm,
you see.
interesting.
He could say it once,
Right.
and then he'll say it again,
Mhm,
and he'll say it again.
mhm.
And it's always like that. You tell somebody once, you have to tell them again, you have to tell them again, otherwise they don't hear. But then if you start doing it every day as a matter of habit, then it becomes not right.
Uh-huh.
You see.
I see.
So you need power of discrimination to detect when this is not a problem of you, but that he needs something to do something to make himself feel all right. But this is very subconscious, very subconscious. See, because in your subconscious, there are wounds. So tomorrow, I'm supposed to do a whole thing about the subconscious in our Anubhuti retreat place. So I will talk about all this, how we are really driven by stuff that's in our subconscious, which came in there over the course of thousands of years, because we have incarnated, reincarnated, reincarnated, reincarnated. You have no clue what you were in your last birth, right? Who knows? But the imprints of it are in there, you see.
Mm.
And India has this information of karma, of yoga. All this material is in India, but it's tangled up. So, and in the literature that you have, in the scriptures, in the legends, in the Vedas, in the Mahabharata, in the Ramayana, in the, you know, all these things. It's all mixed up with different opinions and different conclusions based on sense perception, experiences, all mixed up, you see. And so this essence has to be extracted. And so there is a God who knows all things, who says, hey guys, I would like to open a school. Are you interested in studying with me? If you got an invitation like that, what would you do? Would you take it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you want to know, well, what's going on in his mind here? I mean, hey, they say God knows. What does he know? I want to know, right? So if he says, okay, I'm going to teach you to understand existence the way I understand it. You say, I'm in. I want to know, you see. And of course, God is intangible, not physical, right? But yet has to speak. How do you speak if you don't have a body? Use somebody else's. I mean, you know, it's quite practical. And, you know, I begin this with the some quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, right? Yes. 4 verses I read for you from the 2nd chapter, all about yoga. And all about, for example, it started with, you have a right to action, but you don't have a right to the consequences of your action. It means wait until it comes in its own good time. Yoga is evenness of mind. Become wise. Things like that, right? You know. And what is the Gita? It is said that God talks to someone who's on the battlefield, and this person is arguing the whole way through. Doesn't agree. God said, do this, do that. No, I won't. God very patiently says, well, you should do this and this and this. And he said, no, I won't, because it's not moral, because this, because that. And slowly, slowly, God takes out his arguments. So who is God? This is the main question. Who is God? So in India, there's many gods and goddesses, right? How many gods and goddesses are there? Some people say the 330 million. That's a lot of gods and goddesses. And then they say, well, God incarnates 24 times in this form and that form and the other form, right? And so, you know, then you think 24 times. I mean, he can't get it right. He has to keep redoing it. Something wrong. You know, why? So, as I said, it's very tangled up. And it's very difficult for people to figure out where these ideas came from, who came up with it, why did they come up with it, how come it's so completely incomprehensible, how come all these people believe it, what's going on? And this is the foundation of all civilizations in the world, you see. And so you say, I need a key. So I told you in the beginning, we're looking at keys. And you see, all this is to do with karma philosophy. All this is to do with how to understand who you are. You are not what you see when you look in the mirror. That's your latest car, right? Your vehicle. You know about Indian gods and goddesses, they all have riding on different animals, right? And so how come people need to ride on animals? It's kind of strange, right? But they all have animals. So for example, Shiva, he riding on a bull, all right? And then you have Saraswati, she has a swan, right? And different ones have different, you know. Then you have Ganesh, he's got an elephant head. The rest of him is human, elephant head, because his dad went off for 1,000 or 2 years to the mountains to meditate. Meanwhile, his mum got him. And his dad came back. His mum was having a bath. And she asked him to guard the door. Don't let anybody come in. I'm having my bath. That's reasonable. And then he came. And Ganesh said, you can't come in. My mum's having a bath. And he said, well, I'm your dad. He said, I don't know who you are. It was one of these absent fathers, right? And so he cut his head off, you know. Yeah, I mean, his dad. And then his mom said, oh, cut the head off my child. What is this? He said, oh, I didn't know it was your child. He said, well, he is. It's our child. Oh, okay. No, I've got to fix this. So I tell you what, I will put another head back on his. The first person who comes along, I'll put it back on the head and he'll be all right again. So the first one who came along was the elephant. So he cut the elephant's head off, put it on his son. Here you go. He's got a head now. Yeah, but it's an elephant. What did you do? You know, this is family life, right? And so all these things are symbolic. They all have meaning. But when you hear stories like this and you're an artist, you draw pictures of it. And then you show it to the people and they say, oh, yeah. Then you make statues of it, put it there. Ah, it's gods and goddesses like this. Okay. But what does it mean? Who are these people really? How did this happen? What's it all about? No information. Because it's ancient, long forgotten stuff. And so who never forgets anything? The God, you see. Now, how come God doesn't forget anything? How come we forget things? You see, you do not remember your previous life, do you? So there is a kind of, you know, if you would know all the different lives you would have and all the various different people who've been your mom, your dad, your friend, your boyfriend, girlfriend, this, that, the other, you know, and they're all change positions, it's way too confusing. So it's like a safety mechanism to be here now, have this current identity, but you have the effect of the past in your subconscious. So you carry that. So what you have in your subconscious is ancient memories of who you were 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 5,000 years ago. You don't remember. And God doesn't have this process of incarnation, reincarnation, and whatnot, see? And so he remembers. Because I know who you are, I've been tracking you all this time. So really, what do you know about me that I don't know? These are many things. Let me give you keys so that you can begin to understand who you are. This is of interest, right? And so we say, yeah, I want the goods. I want to understand myself. I want to understand yourself. I want to understand what's going on. How do we get like this and what's next? So all these things. So the current thing is yoga is skill in action. This is what he teaches. Means yoga means you have enough power, enough understanding, enough wisdom to do the right thing at the right time and the right way with the right person, and move on to the next and the next. And in that way, build capacity, build your good karma, and open up your third eye, right? Gods and goddesses always have a third eye, right? Right? You have a third eye or only two? If you could have the third eye, you want it? Yes. What is the third eye? Notice if you see, for example, you can see on Durga. You seen Durga? Yeah, well, she's got a nice, good third eye, right? But your two eyes are this way and your third eye is the other way. Goes that way. And why would you need three eyes when two eyes are perfectly adequate? Or what does your third eye show you, which your two eyes don't show you? So the third eye is sometimes called the third eye of wisdom, right? So that's the eye of your mind, the eye of your intelligence, with which to see things that are intangible, invisible, such as the soul. You can't see a soul. But with that third eye, you can understand it, you can perceive it, because the third eye is not physical, and the soul is also not physical. So in order for you to be able to see, understand, and operate in the material world and the non-material world, you need third eye. And who is the giver of the third eye? God. So it's a very important resource, you see, because God has something we need, so we have to get it, you see. How do you get things from God? You ask? I think you have to demand. You know, because there's a lot of people asking, oh God, will you please sort out my finances? Can you fix my illness? Sort out my parents, grandparents, children, aunts, uncles, property problems, plumbing problem. You know? He says, you know, you have other resources for that. Use me for what I'm for. Third eye, you want that? I can help you there. Right? But you have to deserve it. That means you have to really want it. You know, you say, how hard do you want? How much do you want it? I really, really want it. I will stop eating for a month if you don't give it to me. Things like that, you know. So people do all sorts of things. Demand, you see. So if you demand, he'll give. And then he teach you how to use it, how to take care of it, all of these things, because it's a highly valuable thing, third eye, you know. How many people have the third eye? Not that many. You want it. You have to merit it. You have to use it properly. Yeah. Then you can start to understand stuff. Because when you see only with your two eyes, you see male, female, you see color, culture, caste, religion, nationality, economic level, education level, all these things. This is tangible, visible, and it gets us into trouble. So it also says in the Bhagavad Gita that your problem is that you think that what you perceive through your sense organs is real. And you operate as if it is real, and it gets you into trouble because sense perception is deceptive. It is not what it looks like. It is not what it sounds like. It is not what it feels like. It's something else, you see. And so for that, you need the third eye to perceive what cannot be shown to you by your sense organs. So you can perceive that you are an immortal soul who passes through many lives, who has had a lot of spiritual power, and it got slowly depleted, and now you need a fill up. And so God is called the Lord of Yoga, Yogeshwar. Have you heard this word, Yogeshwar? Yogeshwar means the God of Yoga. So very often people will say for Krishna is the Lord of Yoga, right? Usually. And if you see in the Gita, the whole Gita, you'll see there are many descriptions of God in that, you know. But very few of them apply to Krishna, maybe just one or two. And the rest of them apply to another one who is much more dangerous. God is dangerous or not dangerous? Some people say you have to have fear of God. Should you or shouldn't you? No. So why do they say you should have fear of God? Okay, well, that's people, but you don't buy into any of that stuff. But what's the origin of why you should be afraid of God? I think it's more like because God will tell you the truth. Oh, there is nothing more inconvenient, unpleasant, and problematic than having to deal with the truth. You know, sometimes people say the awful truth. And in the Gita, God reveals himself as very, very bright light. Have you seen that? Yeah. So if you would be confronted with an enormously bright light, you might get a bit afraid of that. Anything that's like big and strong, it's like you get a bit scared. And so it also says, I will show you, or his student, Arjuna says, can you please, you know, just adopt your friendly form because your fearful form is not very good. I don't, you know, relate to that too well. So he shows his, it's called Bahurupi. Have you heard this expression, Bahurupi? It means there are many, many forms. And so God has many aspects that you can detect, you can experience, you can feel. It's a very complex being. And there, as I said, there's a lot of symbolic material, you see. And so one of the things that he explains about is what is symbolic and what is real. So let's go back to his child who got an elephant head. His other head got cut off. So your head is symbolic of ego. So one of the things that God will do is take down your ego. Ego means false ego, you see. And that is a good thing because our ego is not real. That's why it's called false ego. And then why exchange that for an elephant's head? It's also symbolic, you know. Elephant has big ears, symbolic of he knows what's going on. He has small eyes, symbolic of he doesn't look too closely, lets everything be, but he knows what's going on, right? Elephant is very sensitive. He has a long trunk. He knows what's going on. But he's been decapitated and replaced with someone wise. Elephants are known to be wise, right? So instead of ego, you become a wise person. That's better, right? But when you have something called an ego death, have you heard about ego death? It's worse than normal death, because all of your fakery is exposed and you lose face. That's really bad, right? Losing face, nobody wants that. But losing face and having your ego destroyed is very unpleasant, very painful, very awful, but it's beneficial. And so your interaction with God involves taking down your ego. And what is ego? It is a mask that you build to hide your wounds, which you got from life, from things, colonialism included. And it causes you to do bad things, like every day tell your daughter that she's untidy. You see, but it's not really to do with the daughter's untidy, it's to do with deep pain on the inside. It's an outlet, you see. And the females are safe to vent your frustrations on. So it's understandable, and yet it's not really a solution. So what we need is a solution. And the solution that he offers is, sit with me, let me explain you everything. It takes forever. Let me explain you little by little by little, and start understanding stuff in a whole new way. And learn how to take power, because you got depleted and you need power. So learn how to take power. Take power every day. Drink, drink, drink. Be careful not to let your power get drained away by your obsessive compulsive thinking and feeling guilty and all that kind of thing. And become slowly, slowly wise, strong, aware, easygoing about all the craziness that's going on. And you will be slowly, slowly a yogi, a wise person. See what I mean? You will have evenness of mind, and you will be skilled in action, you see. And all of this comes from India, which is your country. So you have to know, right? It's treasure, big treasure. Right, I finished. So